first one here, man. No, I'm kidding.
Hello, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
I upgraded my background.
You did. Okay. Very nice.
This is the inspiration for the future.
That's right. That's what I like to see. Need something like that. We have to set up my office next month. What's going on, Dom?
What's going on? I'm shaking.
How you feeling?
Feeling good. I get this working.
Say that again.
Trying to get this working. Hopefully get
Yes,
this hands
sir.
off.
Yes, sir. Well, let me make sure I got everybody in here. My bad. All right. Everybody's rolling in. We'll give it like give everybody like another minute or two. Probably like a couple more folks rolling in. Hey, Renee. What's up, Sean? How's everybody coming? How's everybody doing with the how's everybody doing with the course in the school platform? I know I told a couple of you guys to start the How to Land Your Dream Job course. How's that coming along?
Yeah. No, you can go.
Oh, no, you can go, Dominique. That's okay.
Okay. No, I know you sent. I did the first two slides or two modules, I guess you could call it, the resume and the LinkedIn profile, and then pretty much now I'm just reaching out to recruiters, just connecting, not actually messaging them because I don't really have the background to kind of speak on it. So just staying on, I guess, the third slide.
Awesome. There, so let me share my screen. What's up, Jonathan?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's going on?
So
Shaking. I feel like it's been such a long week.
Boy.
So most of you guys should have access to this course. Really this course basically it compresses the entire job search process. So as we continue to progress, like after this week, everybody should already there'll be some action items to complete, to say the least. And so you know, once we address like something that needs to get done, I'm expecting everybody to do it. No questions, you know, just get it done, you know, because you know, like I said, this week was pretty much like onboarding, get everybody access, but now like we're kicking things off, we're going right into the program. And so you know, when my higher upper manager is like, hey, like I need you to complete this training, you know, by Friday or by this date, like it's not like a debate. Well, you know, I didn't have time because whatever, like it's just like you get it done. It's not like I don't care if you stay up till 3 a.m, just get it done. So in this course, it's how to build a winning resume. There's a video here, a resume manual. There's a draft template. I'll upload. Okay, I see what happened. So you must have edited this one, Dom, but everyone should make a copy. Don't edit the actual template, just make a copy. That's also listed in the instructions. So make sure you do that.
my bad.
It's all good. I'll fix it. The resume menu kind of walks you through, right? So it'll walk you through, see, you know, all the steps that you'll need. But I'll add some more templates to this, just because I have a couple other templates that I want you guys to use. But nonetheless, it's a 13-minute video on how to actually build a winning resume. You can see here. So
the skills. Welcome.
Right.
today
And Wasim
it
goes
is
into depth on like how you even
the-
use like ChatGPT to build your resume and how we actually do this. So it's really helpful and it's really good content. Same thing with LinkedIn. We go from scratch, like
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
right from beginning to end. And this covers like everything as if you wouldn't like don't have a profile. Most of you have a profile already. You just need to spruce it up. How to network like a champion. This is more like job search strategy. So this is like how you connect with recruiters, how do you get in contact with the right people, so that you can help so that they can help you find the roles that you're going to be applying for. So everything from, you know, searching for a specific recruiter, the search that you would look for in LinkedIn, the initial message. I'll just say this now, being that we're, you know, still at the beginning of the program and a lot of you guys are just going to be just starting out seeing some of this stuff, you don't necessarily have to connect with the recruiters or the hiring managers, but what will be important, excuse me, you don't have to send a message to them. This is what I've instructed a few of you to do. You don't have to send this message, because once you send a message to James, let's just say, right, you're going to say, I'm looking for a role. I wanted to connect to see if you have any, you know, positions that might fit my background. The next thing that they're going to respond with is send me your resume. And so we want to make sure that before we do that, we just connect with them so that they're kind of like we're turning them into a warm lead. And if you're smart and you follow the framework, then over the next couple of weeks, you're going to be engaging with every single post that I post. You'll be reposting it. You'll be commenting. You'll be sharing your own contributions, which we discussed last week. Like if you're really serious about this, because that's ultimately going to start to turn a cold lead into a warm lead and eventually a hot lead, which you'll sell yourself to. How to interview like a boss. Again, it kind of goes through, you know, different interview tips and strategies that you can start to adopt so that you know exactly how to sell yourself in an interview. And interviewing is just repetition. You know, Jonathan and I were talking a couple of days ago, and he's like, yo, he's even considering looking for a new role. And he's like, yo, it's like, it's a little nerve wracking. I'm like, yeah, it definitely is. And before I got this job at Microsoft, I felt the same way. And I had like 2-3 interviews before that. So interview prep is exactly what it sounds like. It's just like free throws or layup line. You just got to keep practicing. But we talk about exactly some strategies in here on how you can prepare for an interview, how you can do your research on the company and the roles so that you can understand the types of questions that specific companies ask for particular roles. And then we even go into a cover letter. Most people forget about a cover letter because they just feel like, you know, why not? But, you know, at the end of the day, if you have a great cover letter and a great resume and a great LinkedIn, you're going to really separate yourself from 95% of the competition. So it's good to have a cover letter. It's good to actually submit this. Again, you don't have to do it for every position because it can be time consuming. But to have a solid cover letter that's already done for you, you just have to plug in. If it's a cyber threat intelligence analyst role, you would plug that in there. Anything that's highlighted, you would change this from, if you're applying at Microsoft, you change it to Microsoft. You know, as a seasoned cybersecurity professional, you would just have to, everything is pretty much done for you. You just have some couple things to edit. But again, we wanted to make it really, really easy for you. And then there's a recap. So you guys should already have started this course. Okay. And the goal with this should be to finish this by next week. So by this time next week, you should be done with this entire course. That's resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, and then just be continuing to do, you know, the network like a champion, interview like a boss, right? But your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, all those things should be done and you should be sending them back. So just so everybody's aware, by next week, I want everybody to send me a copy of their resume, their cover letter, and have their LinkedIn profile updated. Okay. And if you haven't connected with me on LinkedIn already, then please make sure to connect with me on LinkedIn. So if I, you know, type in, let's say John Smith, right? And I want to connect with John Smith. Okay. There's a couple ways. If you just hit follow, that's different from connecting. So it's funny, this guy works at CrowdStrike. So following is different than connecting. So you want to make sure if it doesn't say connect here, sometimes it will, that you hit more and then you hit connect. Okay, because that's different from following somebody. So just make sure that you do that. So connect with me on LinkedIn and make sure you get your profile optimized and ready to go. Everything from the image, right? We even go into how to take a professional headshot. So this photo is actually an AI generated image. And so we even like, if you don't have a professional photographer, you don't want to spend like $400 for a shoot, there's software and there's different AI technologies that you can leverage where you can just take a couple selfies and it'll literally give you like a professional image like this. It's really dope. I'll show you another profile. A good friend of mine who actually was the one who told me about this. Antoine, right? This one actually used looks a little bit more AI generated than I probably would like, but from here you can't even tell.
Are you
right?
are you sharing your screen? I can't see.
You guys can't see my screen right now?
I can see your screen.
I can
Oh,
see.
that means me. Okay. I don't know why.
Can you see it down?
No, let me see. What's content?
I'll reshare. Hold on. This should be my entire screen for everything.
Yeah.
So
No, I see it.
yeah, so like boom. So Antoine, you can see like obviously the same thing. So this is, you guys should have a profile looks complete, like, you know, background image, headshot. Don't put a measly headshot of you in your living room, you know, taken on an iPhone 7. It's gonna look terrible. You want it to look up to par. Your headline is very important, which is right here, goes under your name. And then we even go into more depth, right? Your about, introductory summary. That's really important, okay? You can even feature some articles that you write. Your LinkedIn should be full, like featured. You can feature your resume, which I do. You can see here. So my resume is featured on my profile, so anybody who comes by can see it. I have a Forbes article, a couple other things that I've, you know, awards that I've gotten, articles that I've written that I feature on my profile. So your profile should be this. My profile, when you come to it, you know exactly who I am and exactly what I do. No questions asked. I never used the word, again, I'm 10 years in the industry, but for those of you who may have just graduated, I've said, hey, don't use the word student. Don't use the word student because you're not or graduate. Because when you use the word student or graduate, you're marketing yourself out as a novice, as a newbie. Like you're not if you're a graduate, then leave that in the past. Now you're an aspiring cybersecurity professional, or just put cybersecurity professional, cybersecurity analyst, SOC analyst, whatever it is. But we go into depth on headline. All right, we go into depth on introductory summary bio. So it kind of goes into depth on what it is you're looking for. You have a featured section. If it's not something you don't have anything to put there now, then just work on building that out. That's your goal for the next couple of days. Obviously, my activity, I'm posting every day. I'm commenting, I'm engaging. You can see my experience section, right? It ticks and ties with all of the experience on my resume. There's still stuff that I've actually left out for reasons I won't go into. But the point is everything ticks and ties. So education, licenses, certification, volunteering, skills. This is extremely, extremely important. All right. And I'll show you why. If you go on LinkedIn, I'm going to wrap this up here because I want to go into too much depth, but I want everybody to know how important it is and not to waste time about this. So if you go on LinkedIn, you type in SOC analyst, right? Tons of, 1,200 results, and you can filter, use these filters. If you guys are looking at these, you can filter. I wouldn't filter on remote because as, more entry-level people, you may want to, first and foremost, being on site is probably where you're going to learn the most. Hybrid's great too. But if you wanted to, take the easy way out, then you could hit the easy apply, and that's going to significantly reduce by over 1,000 jobs. So I would say do it, but I would say don't 100% rely on easy apply, even though it's very easy to apply. You're eliminating a very large pool of job descriptions. More importantly, so if we actually go to, let's just remove easy apply. All right. And let's do experience level, internship, entry level, and associate, because those are the more like junior roles. So here's a SOC analyst role, SOC analyst. Like, so if we click here and you look, this one was uploaded 50 minutes ago. And a really cool thing about LinkedIn is, and nobody's clicked on, 0 people click to apply. It's a good time to apply for this before it gets blown up. So typically it'll show skills. This one isn't showing. But let's look at this one. Okay. Where's the skills? Why is it not showing the skills? What did I do? On site. Let me try to find one that'll. Okay. So for example, you see how it says 0 out of 2 skills match. Like, take this with a grain of salt, okay? But what I'm saying is 0 out of 2 skills. So if you click here, the skills added by the job post. So the job post only posted 2 skills, and they have threat assessment and attention to detail. Again, you could use ChatGPT to summarize, hey, assume the role of a recruiter hiring for a SOC analyst, security analyst, and information security analyst role. If you look here, I typed in SOC analyst, but look at what it's returning. It's returning cybersecurity analyst. It's returning security operations centers, or in parens, SOC analyst, SOC analyst internship, senior security analyst, incident response. Security analyst, SOC analyst, information security analyst, cybersecurity analyst are all used interchangeably, if you can't tell already. Cybersecurity incident responder, right? SOC analysts are going to do incident response. It's just part of the job. It's part of the domain. Cybersecurity analyst. So these phrases are used interchangeably. But the point I'm trying to make is that you can change this on what you're searching for, right? But the skills, you have to pay attention to the skills. And a lot of this will rely on the recruiters and the hiring managers who aren't technical. So they're just throwing words on here. But if you pay close attention to decent job descriptions, okay, you'll see that there will be a lot of similarities and there will be commonalities. Senior incident response analyst, okay? You'll see like what skills it is that they're looking for. And then those will be the skills that you want to host on your profile. And you'll want to host them in order of relevance, okay? So I could probably do some updating on my LinkedIn as well. But if you look here, incident management, right? Yours will be slightly different because, again, I'm marketing more of my business than I am my cyber skills at this point. But what you guys want to be doing is you want to be prioritizing the order of these so that they identify with what? The job description. So that when you come across these job descriptions, okay, let me click another one. SOC analyst with Accenture. This is definitely a great gig because Accenture is a huge advisory consulting firm, right? So Varonis, you got to just look. But a lot of times when you come across these jobs, right, you want to like take like a good pool of, let's just say, security analyst roles, like I did right here. Search on that, and I'm going to get rid of like just this for the sake of this, because you guys might have to do a little bit more work, because obviously entry-level jobs are a little bit farther and few. But right here, just in this first one, security control assessor, that's not really what I'm looking for, but 3 out of 9 skills match. So security information, SIM, you guys all know what that is, pen testing, information security, app security, so on and so forth. If I wanted to apply for this role, if I wanted to apply for cybersecurity analyst at Hunk, then I would want to make sure that my skills are more than 3 out of 9. They're like 8 out of 10 or 8 out of 9 or 9 out of 9. And so what you can do is you can search for cybersecurity analysts and do research on like, okay, out of the 20 entry-level cybersecurity analyst positions or cyber threat, right? Cyber threat intelligence analyst roles, or just threat hunter roles, right? What are the top skills that they're saying that they want someone to have, right? And look, high skills match. So now, boom, look at this. This job description, I have all the most of the skills that they're looking for. So, and then you'll get a consensus on, okay, most of the jobs that I'm looking at for a, cybersecurity consultant are posting, these 5 skills as the top 10 in their list. So you want to make sure that your LinkedIn is appealing and it takes and ties with the actual job description, which is right here, the about the job, the requirements, the responsibilities, qualifications, because every job description, for the most part, there are a lot of shitty ones out there, will say what exactly was what they're looking for. And that's what, you want to be hosting here. And if you look here, you'll see under every skill, all right, every skill will give you an opportunity to be endorsed. So when you endorse someone, okay, so I'm gonna go to Dom. All right, I'm gonna go to Dom's page. So he's saying aspiring cybersecurity professional, not bad. We could build on that. All right, pretty good. I can tell he's in his car. So this would be a good selfie for the AI. but we gotta make sure that this looks like he's in his car, right? No, we don't want that. All right, but not picking on you, Dom, just want to go through, right? So see right here, he has security research. When I endorse Dom, right, he has now an endorsement by me, right? And what that does is it's credibility, right? It's credibility. And even more than that, is recommendations. And we'll talk about recommendations. So every one of you guys, so assignment action item for next week is everything in the course, resume, cover letter, LinkedIn profile, connect with me, connect with Jonathan, and connect amongst each other. Because you want to get to 500 plus connections as soon as humanly possible. It's almost like seeing someone with like a verification on Instagram, which doesn't mean anything now, or 100,000 followers. You'd be like, wow, that person's popular, right? So when you have 500 plus connections on LinkedIn, that's where you're capped at. Like if you have 10,000 connections, it'll never say 10,000. It'll say like 500 plus connections, I believe. So you want to get to 500 plus as soon as possible, because that's when it'll show you essentially like you've maxed out your profile. It just looks really healthy at that point. So everyone should connect with one another and endorse one another, because the more endorsements you have, the more credibility. So that's why I'm on Dom's profile right now, endorsing him. And hopefully, right, if someone endorses you, you'll do what?
Endorse back.
Yeah, you'll show the love and endorse them back. Exactly. Right? Because now I just endorsed Dom for all his skills, and now he has more credibility on his profile. So that's skills. And then last but not least is recommendations, right? Recommendations are really important, because if you scroll to the bottom of your profile, you'll see that I've received over 21 recommendations. And these are from people who have been through my program in the past. You can see like from 2022. 2022. I'm not that old. And who have left reviews on the program, their experience, me, my personality, my work ethic, and my skills and ability. Seeing some familiar faces here, right? And so this is credibility for anyone who's coming across my page as a recruiter. Wow, this person, said that they've worked with him and he really, knows his stuff, right? He's really knows his stuff. He's very hardworking. This is credibility. And I've given some too. I haven't given as many as I've gotten, but I've given some as well, right? So point is, this is really important. And to request a recommendation is simple. You go to the person's profile, you go, Dom, you work with me for a couple months. I want to know your, what your feeling is. Request recommendation. I can say that he reported to me. I can say when I was at this position or whatever job you were at, and I can say, hey, can you write me a recommendation, Dom? I'd appreciate it. Be like, hey, I would appreciate it. And if you wanted to give them some guardrail, I would appreciate, I would appreciate it if you could mention the following, right? And whatever those things are, just to give him an idea on like, what are some things you want to highlight? And then you hit send. Now what's going to happen is Dom's going to get a message in his inbox that's going to say, hey, William's asking you for a recommendation. Can you, hey, it would be like on his side, hey, can you write me a recommendation? And then he'd click on this and he'd be able to then see what I wrote, like right here. And then he'd be able to respond back and then I'd be able to post that on my profile. Okay. And then it's honors and awards, all that great stuff. So that's what a complete profile looks like. So again, sorry to take up so much time going over that, but the reason why I chose to go through that with everybody is because it is that important. And if we're going over the things that we're going to be going over the next, couple of weeks from tonight on, you want to make sure that you know what to do with it, because other than that, you're just spinning your wheels. So make sure that you go through the course, make sure you create your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn, make sure you're contributing. If I post something in school, make sure that you engage with it, like it, comment. If I post something on LinkedIn, make sure that you engage with it, like, comment, share, and vice versa. If I see that you guys are doing it, I'm going to do the same thing, because what that does is it allows us to interconnect and spread more awareness, and for us to get more eyes on our profiles. And what we're doing from tonight is going to be what everybody that's hiring wants to see. right? When we go into the QRadar, when we go into CrowdStrike, when we actually look at these alerts now, and we actually start to really break down security operations, incident response, now you guys are security analysts working in a SOC. So don't be quiet and passive, or the jobs will pass you by. So get active. Anything housekeeping, John? Sorry to be long-winded.
All good. Can everybody confirm they can log in right now? I know for me personally, I need to get the QR code still from CrowdStrike.
All right, yeah, I can let me pull that up real quick just because
Yeah.
right here, and this
And
way.
yeah, well, the other thing I was going to add was what are you going to be posting, right? So when you think about what are you going to be posting on LinkedIn, you want to be able to speak to your profession or what you're aspiring to be. And that includes reading through cyber intel reports, right? If you don't have a site that you go to get your cybersecurity news, I recommend the Hacker News, really great website. Has the latest news on new techniques that hackers are using, the latest hacks on the big companies that are occurring. And sometimes in real time, they'll just drop something, and that's how people find out. There's a lot of people on Twitter you can follow. Maybe we can come up with a list and we can put that out there. But,
Yeah.
I personally like to read Daniel Messler. He's a big guy in the cybersecurity community. Speaks a lot about cybersecurity and just AI in general. But these are things that you read, you get to understand what it is, or you just find interesting, and then you share in your LinkedIn a little like 2-sentence summary of what you just read, and you post it. And that way people know, and you put content out there, your face is out there, people can interact with you on LinkedIn about the article, and then you start making connections. Because it's like any social media platform. The more you interact in it, the more exposure the platform will give you, and the more your name and your face will show up in front of recruiters and other people that are in a similar journey to you, that you can connect with.
Yeah, and I'll just say this too. If you have more Instagram followers than you do on LinkedIn, then you got to try to reverse that. And real quick, for our show of hands, are just coming off mute because there's a couple of people I've actually worked with before, which you guys learned last week. The reporting aspect, John was just talking about, the intelligence, commenting on the intelligence, doing your daily research. How many people in this room right now from doing our cyber threat intelligence reports has that contributed to them getting a job? We got Kizzy. Kizzy, have you ever been asked in an interview for when any of the jobs that you've gotten since the beginning of time, have you ever been asked about the cyber XCS experience on your resume, and did the cyber threat intelligence reporting aspect play a part in your interview process at all, like in terms of you selling yourself or speaking to your abilities and skills in cyber?
Yes, it helped a lot, especially when they ask, what do I do to stay up to date with current cyber threats and news? And of course, speaking to my cyber XC experience when we're reviewing my resume.
Right. So the point is because she's one of many. I know there's only I would say two people on this call, but she's one of many. And it's crazy because when I've heard some of the responses I've gotten from other students who actually got jobs, it was like, yeah, and that, like, I remember Dami was a really big success story for us, where she had no experience. She was working at the unemployment office in California. And after like 4 weeks, she got a job at EY as a cybersecurity consultant. She has no tech background. She's making 6 figures. And they asked specifically all about the experience and the cyber threat intelligence stuff. And so now, reason why I'm mentioning is because now what we're getting into, and that was just scratching the surface. But now what we're getting into is security operations incident response for 100%. So don't take the stuff what we're saying lightly when we say comment on an article, provide some substance, even if it's just a small little blurb on like your thoughts on it. highlighting the IOC or the CVE that was published, right? Even if you're regurgitating the information, you're still becoming you're still a contributor. So you're still strengthening your ecosystem of cybersecurity awareness, even if you're just echoing someone else's message or somebody else's research. Cybersecurity research is a thing. And all it is Googling, reading an article, right? That's part of the research and intel. There's dedicated teams for cyber threat intelligence, which is a fancy way to say cyber research, which is a fancy way to say data collection, right? So John is speaking facts, and it's
You got muted. You muted yourself. You muted
Can't hear
yourself.
you.
I don't know if you can hear us.
I have a whole resource repository I'll share with you guys, of open source intel that you guys can start to tap into and leverage. If you're not looking into this stuff every day, again, we're making recommendations to you guys to go from, zero to securing your career in cyber as fast as possible. These are not just like, allegations. These are not just like, us, speaking, just to hear ourselves talk. It's if you do this stuff, you'll get a job. That's what this is. But it's going to require constant dedication. And yes, reading, waking up in the morning instead of scrolling, getting on bleeping computer, reading a couple articles and a couple headlines and knowing what the hell is going on in this space across these different industries, because that's what you actually do on the job. So, John, do you need me to share that one more time, the QR code? I have access to CrowdStrike. So again, I could share and I can drive on that. And again, I'll get everybody those knowledge articles. But does anyone else need the QR code? I want to share it one more time, and then I want to pivot, and we'll go right in. We'll get right into this, to the good stuff.
Yep.
So here, I'll share one more time.
Let me take a picture.
And if you can on your phone, I would just scan it from your Authenticator app, because taking a picture probably won't help you. You'll still need,
right.
you'll need to not have a picture on your phone, but you'll need to scan it from your Authenticator app. So I recommend just taking the time now. And we'll go ahead and jump into it. One thing I will mention that I'm working on to have for you guys that'll kind of serve as the holy grail for the next couple of weeks is our shift turnover report. So whenever you're getting on shift, whenever you like start your shift in a SOC, typically when you hear the term, we talked about this last week, 24/7 follow the sun model, like working in a security operations center, there's typically like 24/7 coverage. So that's typically 3 shifts for the most part. It could vary, but most likely, most common is 3 shifts. You typically have the first shift, which is like 7 to 3, Monday through Friday, right? There's also weekend coverage as well. But like the coverage typically is 7 to 3, then like 3 to 11, and then like 11 to 7, right? Those are the 3 shifts. So you typically have 3 turnovers, and you could think of it as like, one shift ending and the next shift coming on. And so the job of first shift is to turn over, hence the name shift turnover report, is to turn over all of the activity, like, hey, what happened in the environment today? What was going on? What were any customer requests that we received? What activity was making a lot of noise? What activity, what incidents popped off? Was there any, artifacts or things to note other than, business, as usual, operations. And that's just going to be like a report template that you literally update every day, and also will account for the work that you did as an analyst. So one thing you'll learn that a lot of SOCs are starting to pay more attention to is metrics. You'll hear this term metrics. And think of it as like stats for like an athlete. Like, okay, LeBron is averaging 29 points, 7 rebounds, 4 assists. And those are his metrics. Those are his metrics. And so as an analyst, you're going to have metrics too. John, you good with that?
It's giving me a hell of a time. It's all right.
All right. Well, if you do take a picture, and then you could send it to Justine, and then whatever, you could scan it. But your metrics as an analyst are going to they're going to vary, and it's basically going to be your metrics are going to be a combination of the amount of alerts that you've worked, the types of alerts, maybe an environment that you were responsible for covering. So if you're working for an MSSP, which is a managed security service provider, you're most likely a company who is monitoring other clients' environments. So you're not so much monitoring your internal environment. Like if you work at Nordstrom and you're an analyst working at Nordstrom, then you probably are just working internally at Nordstrom and monitoring Nordstrom's environment. But if you're working for an MSSP, you know, DOMS Security Solutions, and DOMS Security Solutions is an MSSP, then DOMS Security Solution may be supporting a couple different clients, and that could be a sneaker store, it could be a retail chain, it could be a small law firm, and those are your clients. And so now you're working in those different environments in their tools. And so part of your metrics would be what customers you're actually covering and responsible for when you're on your shift. Okay, and so you have dedicated analysts, and then you had, you know, shared services. So you may be an analyst that works only in one particular client, right? I've had instances of like that where you only are dedicated to this one client, right? And you're a lead in that client. You monitor only that environment, only their tools, and you're a lead. You communicate with the client, so you're client facing, and you know, are just dedicated. Or you could be an analyst that's spread over multiple environments. And so in the shift turnover report, those are different, I would say, metrics that would reflect, okay, Dom was covering client A, client B. These were the tools that he was working in. These were alerts that he worked. This one alert he escalated to the customer or escalated to a tier 2 now is a current investigation or a current incident. So these are just some of the things that you'll actually have on your shift turnover report, and it's typically how you start your day. So when I got on shift this morning, when I got on, I was literally greeted with a shift turnover report from the overnight that I had to acknowledge and sit on that call and go over it, make sure that the person who was presenting, right, covered all the information from the overnight to convey it to first shift. And then when we're getting off shift and we're passing to the second shift or the third shift, we have to conduct the shift turnover report and relay that information to the incoming shift. So it's like passing the baton. If you know track and field and you're running a 400, you're just passing the baton to the next runner. So everybody knows what's happening in the environment, and so that nothing slips through the cracks. Does that make sense to everybody? It'll make more sense when I actually have the document for you guys to see, and I'll start to give you guys the opportunity to update that document yourself and start adding some of the work that we're doing on our sessions in the turnover. But does that make sense to everybody?
It's like somewhat the nursing field, like they have their patients, and at the end of the shift, they have to kind of give a report on
Exactly.
their patients, and then so before they leave, you know.
Exactly. It's exactly right.
Because it's
Or
24/7.
Yeah, 24/7, or you're a security guard, right? One person, hey, yeah, man, I'm security guard at a hotel, and next person's coming in, this person's getting out, right? So
Police
you're
officer.
yeah, police officer. It's security operations. It's a turnover report, and each shift is responsible for monitoring the environment because we're in security monitoring. And so when things are happening, if there's an incident that happens on second shift when they're an hour before they're leaving, and it's something that we need to continue investigating, well, then the third shift is going to need to know, right, what's going on so that they can pick up where the other analysts left off. So has anyone played the game of telephone with family?
Yeah.
Right? Telephone is one of those games where it's like, if we all played telephone right now, right? If I started in this room and I sent a personal message to Dom, and we went around the room, and everyone's responsibility was you knew who you had to send a message to. If we all sent a message to the person that we were responsible for, and we went around the room, there's a good chance, I would hope not, but in the game of telephone, most likely when that message came back to me after Kizzy, I told Dom, yo, my favorite color is blue. By the time it got back to me, Dom said he's gonna take you out to a meal for $100. What? What are you talking about? I said my favorite color blue. I mean, shit, you want to take me out for a meal? I'm down. I like, what I'm saying, hibachi. I'm with it. But that's the game of telephone. It's like when in security operations, if the incoming shift doesn't know what the previous shift did, that's a problem. And if the incoming shift doesn't know the temperature in the environment when they're coming on shift, then you're setting your colleagues up for failure, because there's so much stuff happening in security operations and in an environment on a daily basis that things could slip through the cracks. And that's just what we're trying to prevent with the shift turnover report. So when I say the Holy Grail, I mean it. All right, man. Everybody logged in? Everybody good to go?
Yeah, are we starting with any particular platform?
Yeah, so what we're going to be doing, we're going to be jumping into, I guess we can jump into, you want to start with QRadar, John, or you want to start with CrowdStrike?
It's up to you. It's up to you. We can do CrowdStrike first and
All
then
right.
go into QRadar. I'll go into QRadar after.
And one more thing too, guys, if you notice when you click on this, try to only click once and you'll notice that it'll react subtly. Like I clicked, it didn't react. So don't double click on this because then sometimes it'll double like input your credentials, but just move your mouse around. You'll see like if it doesn't respond, then it probably didn't go. But like, for example, there you go. Okay, boom. You saw how it just like when I clicked on it, it kind of like made a slight movement. So now we're in CrowdStrike. And so CrowdStrike is a great tool because there's so many different instances. So if you look here, we're looking at endpoint security. So endpoint security it stands for like, so an EDR, endpoint detection and response. So when you think of D and R, think of detection and response. You're detecting something and responding. EDR stands for endpoint. Endpoint is a server, a workstation. So that can be a laptop, that can be a server, that can be a phone, like a mobile device, right? And so when you think of endpoint, think of all of those different machines as, when you think of phones or laptops or servers, think of endpoints, okay? And so that's essentially what EDR is. There's different acronyms like you have EDR, you have MDR, you have XDR, and you have CDR, right? At the end of each one of those acronyms is DR, detection and response. The first letter in that acronym, right? So if you have, EDR, right? You have MDR, that stands for managed detection and response. You have CDR, cloud detection and response. You have XDR, which is extended detection and response. They all pretty much do the same thing, except they specialize on different points in detection.
Yeah.
So endpoint detection and response is, like I said, servers, workstations, mobile devices. CDR is going to be more cloud. It really stands for cloud detection and response. So that could be network, that could be applications, that can be
Yeah. And just so you know, like, so people talk about the cloud a lot, and all that really means is that it's just the cloud is a little complicated to explain, but essentially it's you're hosting platforms in somebody else's infrastructure, whether it be at the network level, at the software level. There's literally different levels to how you host in the cloud. But a CDR is detection and response on those platforms, meaning that if a company has, servers, if they're running on the cloud, that means that those computers are running on either Amazon, their cloud, or in Google's cloud, or in Microsoft, which is Azure's cloud. But it's the same thing as Will is saying. Detection and response. There's rules, there's alerts, and there needs to be analysts to review these alerts when they come in. A SOC analyst should expect to get alerts from all of them because they are the detection and response operations of a company, right? So
that's a good point. And what I'm doing here is I am feeding ChatGPT, which isn't responding to me.
Question, I'm trying to get into CrowdStrike and it finally responded.
Sorry?
No, it says, it finally came up. Sorry, never mind. You're good.
So for some reason, super slow. Anyway, what in the world?
maybe try it on a different browser.
Can you post a question in the chat?
Oh yeah. So what I'm doing is I've created a prompt where I'm just feeding ChatGPT the scenario. So whenever you're interacting with ChatGPT, you want to make sure that you give as much detail as possible and really create the scenario. So I can say, what is CrowdStrike? It has no context, right? So I'm saying, assume the role of a security analyst, which we all are, that's working as a member of the CSIRT, Cybersecurity Incident Response Team, in a security operations center, who will be using CrowdStrike, the tool, to perform incident response. What is the difference between EDR, XDR, CDR, and MDR? So now it knows exactly the context of what it is that I'm asking. So I just wanted to share with you the differences between these different acronyms that you may hear, because we're working in an EDR today. So we're working in endpoint security, at least right now, right? And so EDR, or endpoint detection and response, focuses on detecting, investigating, and responding to threats on individual devices. So whenever you hear or endpoints, that's essentially what I was getting at, is endpoints can be multiple types of devices. So that can be laptops, workstations, virtual instances, servers, mobile devices. XDR is extended detection and response, and is pretty much expands on EDR. So that's endpoints, network, server, cloud. So it's pretty much the same thing, but just an extended version of EDR. Now, this looks like it's incorrect because it should, I would believe it.
Yeah, I think it hallucinated there.
So sometimes it'll, not only give you the right information, but this should be cloud detection and response. And then lastly, managed detection and response. So when I was saying before about an MSSP, that's essentially what an MDR is. Like, an MDR is an external managed detection and response. So instead of you monitoring your own internal environment through your own EDR platform, right, kind of like what we're doing tonight, you would be paying a company, and you would be paying them for their MDR services. So they would be responsible for managing your environment or your company's environment, okay, and take that off your hands. So you're basically outsourcing it, and they're going to be the ones performing that 24/7 monitoring. So just wanted to give you guys some context when you come across these acronyms. So I think before we kind of get started and like go into like super specifics, for some reason I got to get this thing out of here. It's driving me nuts because you guys don't see it, but I see it. So let me hide these meeting controls. There we go. So I think when you get started at any tool, I think it's important to kind of just play around and click as many buttons as possible. So just from the top, and again, there's different modes. You can switch to like dark mode, right, which is what you see here, or light mode. This is just like your profile. Go through all of these different buttons and click. That's the best way you can get familiar. But right now we're looking at the endpoint security tab, right? And we're looking at the activity dashboard, which you see here. So you go click on this hamburger, click on endpoint security, and then here we are at the activity dashboard, which you can see highlighted right there. And so you'll get a current crowd score, okay, which is kind of like your current CrowdStrike score for kind of where you stand in terms of threats. Here are the new detections. So we got 26 new detections, which we'll take a look at. SHA-based detections. Does anyone know what this is? What a SHA-based, what this string of characters is? Or anybody want to take a guess?
A hash?
Exactly. This is a hash value. So a hash is a random string of characters, as you can see in display 3. 62 CD 7, like nothing you'd ever remember. And it's just a random string of characters for a reason. It's essentially a file's fingerprint, right? And every single hash is a new unique value. And these different SHA-256, SHA-1, MD5, apply algorithms to create these hashes. So you'll see here we have SHA-based detections that are detecting based on different hash values, okay? No data found here for malware by host. We have 166 total Overwatch analyzed events, 1 hunting lead requiring investigation. So it's important just to kind of go through here and just read each one of these headers. We have CrowdStrike over time, most recent detection. So we can see here. I'll be also sharing with you guys a couple run books, which will give you a background and understanding on certain key parameters like severity. So here we have a severity high, but in CrowdStrike and many other tools like QRadar, you'll typically have the first, I would say, lowest level severity alert is going to be what's called an informational severity alert, which is literally what it sounds like. It's just informational. Like it's most likely activity that's relating to legitimate internal processes that are just communicating with each other. And as your computer communicates with different processes within applications and the operating system, it's going to trigger alerts for those events. Those events are going to trigger alerts. And so informational severity alerts are very noisy, and they're most likely not going to be actionable. And then a step up from that is going to be low. A step up from that will be medium. A step up from that is high. And then a step up from that would be critical. And each one of those severity alerts are going to require a different amount of investigation. And so a low severity alert may be something that your company has determined you can respond to within 24 hours. Like if it's a low severity alert, then we want to respond within 24 hours. Somebody has to assign the alert to themselves, and they have to work it and close it or escalate it within 24 hours. It has to be addressed. A medium may be 8 hours. A high may be an hour, and a critical may be 15 minutes. So if you have a high severity or critical severity alert or detection trigger, then those have to be addressed and acknowledged within a particular time frame. That time frame is called an SLA. And an SLA is essentially the service level agreement. It's like the outline or what's the word I'm looking for, John? It's essentially the service agreement between the client and the service provider. Like, hey, look, if these alerts are triggering, you guys got to cater to them and respond to them within this amount of time. And that's
you're talking about SLA?
Yes.
Yeah, service language agreement. It's basically a contract between, if you're a managed provider, for example, or whether you're just a financial institution, you have an SLA between a client and a service provider. And if you don't meet that SLA, say I need to make sure that my systems are up and running, at the 99.99999%. So if they're down over a certain amount, I got to pay money for not being able to provide a service. Now, as a security, your role is I am going to provide a service between a certain amount of time, whether it's responding to an alert. You have 30 minutes where an alert comes in and you don't have your name or somebody's name attached to that alert, for example. And if you're breaking that SLA, that service language agreement, then you could risk, for security on the internal level, it's more about your metrics, like Will was talking about earlier. It shows up in your performance. Hey, this guy, what's he doing that, he's not really fulfilling his job. So it's one of those things. But for example, from a federal level, an organization by law has to report to the federal government if there's depending on their business, if they've been breached, they need to report, I believe, within 72 hours if they get breached. And that's between the government. And if they don't notify the government, then there's fines and penalties that they have to, go through and pay.
Yep, absolutely. That's how serious it is. So thank you for adding that, John. So just kind of going through, again, we're going to take our time, kind of go through this. We're going to just kind of read. I think that's the purpose of what we're going to do today, is just kind of get familiar with the tool. You look here, severity. We talked about severity. These are severity high. Tactic and technique. This is really important because all of these different alerts that you see, these are different detections or use cases, okay, that are being built based off of a particular framework. So this tactic and technique, everybody has a tactic and a technique that they use to make their own lemonade, right? Your tactic may be you cut up 6 lemons in squares and dice them up and squeeze them into a jug and fill it up halfway with water and halfway with lemon squeeze, and then adding 6 tablespoons of sugar. And that's your tactic and your technique, right? Well, hackers have tactics, techniques, and procedures. And this, again, what I'm saying right now, you should be writing down or taking a note of, because this is important stuff. Tactics, techniques, and procedures, also known as TTPs. And what this is saying right here, tactic and technique, defense evasion via masquerading, is based off of a framework you will have to know and you will be asked about. And it's called the MITRE ATT&CK Framework. It's an open source framework or knowledge base that government, public, private sectors all reference in order to build these different attack tactics, techniques, procedures, and patterns to baseline behavior. I may have butchered it a little bit, but John, I actually want you to speak to this a little bit because you actually do this. You build these detections. So how important is the MITRE ATT&CK Framework in relation to alerts, use case development, and ingesting into these tools?
Literally, we're using the MITRE framework every single day, like literally every single day. The reason is because there's something called the kill chain, right? We could talk on that too, but a attacker, they don't reinvent the same thing. They have a set of procedures that they follow, that in order to get from point A to point B, which is from, there you go, there it is, from, hey, I want to target this company because they make a lot of money, so let me go and do that. I want to hack them. This is the exact same steps they have to go through. We know this because, government agencies and private companies already went through this. What does a bad guy do? They do reconnaissance, which is they go and look and see, hey, what's public out there from this company? What's their email? Who is their CEO? Who are the help desk people? They do reconnaissance on what the email format is like. Sometimes a company does first name, last name, the email. Sometimes they do first name, one initial, email. They do that, and they go to websites where there's a bunch of employee data out there. They go and they do recon. Second thing they do is weaponize. Okay, well, it looks like their website is running this. Let me see if I could test around their website. Let me try to do some scans. Let me try to do this exploit. Let me try to do that exploit. Then they do delivery, etc. I'm not even going to go through it because I want to go back to the MITRE framework because I like the MITRE framework even better. This gives you a little high level of how hackers move, but on the MITRE framework, it breaks it down to even better. So if you can go back, well, yeah. So you can see here, once again, we have that chain of the steps that they do. So on the top level, we have the tactics. So there you can see reconnaissance, etc., defense evasion, which we just saw in CrowdStrike over there, and that technique, which is, I believe, what was the technique? Defense evasion, masquerading. It's gonna be in there, and if you find it, or if you click on any one of these, it's gonna explain what it is in detail, right? The adversary may attempt to manipulate features of the artifact to make it appear as legitimate, because obviously they don't want to get caught. So they're going to be wanting to pretend they're just another employee. It tells you how you would even detect it and stuff like that. So this is this resource is infinite. All right. Every company, if they know what they're doing, they're writing their rules based on the MITRE framework because they know exactly how to detect it. To get from reconnaissance to exfiltration, which exfiltration means, as it sounds, basically
they're stealing your data.
Yeah, being able to steal your data. They have to do recon. they have to do initial access, which is go into your network. They have to execute some type of executable malware, do some type of privilege escalation to get more permissions so they can get more data, and then eventually get the right permissions, because not every body or any service account or whatever can actually make it outside the network successfully to get to that step. So what my team does is we try to make detections before they get to that step. We know they're going to get there. We know they're going to be there. 100%, we see them all the time. But what we try to do is before they get to that step, catch them. So when you look at these detections, they're always going to map to this. And if you ever have a question about an alert, or if you want to know more about the type of things you're going to see in the environment, you look at the MITRE framework, and it's going to explain exactly what this detection is. It's going to explain how you would confirm whether or not, because it has like a mitigation. Like it even tells you, hey, here's how you, this is how you would detect it, or this is how you would, if you scroll all the way down, I believe, mitigations, it tells you how you would defend against these techniques. And this is what, in the industry, this is what we use.
Question. I see one from Justine.
Oh, it's not a question. So really quickly, so the MITRE, the people that made MITRE actually have free resources because it's a lot. And while I was studying for Security Plus, I was like, well, how the heck am I gonna learn all of this? I'm not sure if you're gonna share this, but they do have a specific website that they can actually, it's free. And you can go in there and take their little workshops and get yep, there you go. There you go. Yeah, because I feel like when I first saw this, I was freaking out. I'm like, how am I supposed to learn all of this? There's a lot of different things. Yeah. So my point is, if you go to that website, I'm sure we'll already post it on there. I think it's called like Attack Academy IQ, and it walks you through the whole framework. You can take your time through it. Um, I'm taking notes on it,
Is
and
it
they
this
give you
one?
yeah, and they give you like the certificates at the end, and you could put it on your LinkedIn. And how do you could put that as a skill, like the MITRE framework. And I went through the website itself. I followed the workshops of it, and yeah.
Great, great. Thank you for adding that, and 100%. And ultimately, one thing I want to highlight, the most important thing to an organization like John, when he's speaking to his CISO, right? When you see this detection, this labeled severity high or critical, and it's this tactic, technique, procedure on this host, blah, blah, blah. The most important thing, the reason why this is a high severity detection is because it has the potential to have the most significant impact. So it all boils down to that, right? At the end of the day, because impact is dollar signs. So as you look at this matrix, this is so important, guys. This table of columns and rows, tactics, techniques, and procedures. If you look across the top, reconnaissance, you don't need to remember this this value TA0043. You don't need to remember that. But how you determine the difference between the tactics across the top going left to right and techniques is because a tactic always begins with a TA and a technique begins with a T. So you'll see here T, then a bunch of numbers, right? T1, T1548. But privilege escalation is going to begin with a TA. Is that a tactic or a technique? All right. Don't all speak at once now. Jeez Louise. All right. Any
TA?
questions there?
Tactic,
Tactic.
tactic. Yeah.
Tactic. Yes, exactly.
You got on mute, man. Sorry.
Huh?
So we were on mute.
Okay, okay. Yeah, y'all don't have to stay on mute, man. Y'all can get up. You guys can stay off mute. But yes. So again, just I don't know, John, did you have anything else to add on that? I was just gonna kind of finish.
No, let's rock and roll.
All right, so that's pretty much it. We're in endpoint security. Okay. So most of the time, and I'll let John speak on this too, from my experience, I spent a lot more time in the endpoint security component of CrowdStrike, specifically endpoint detections. And so that's where we're going to kind of go now. So if you were to click on the detections from the last dashboard, if we were here and we were on the activity dashboard, we'll get to the same place. So if we go from here and just click on detections, it'll take us to the same place that I just was for endpoint detections. Okay. And so this is most likely the queue of where you're going to be working when alerts come in, as you can see here in display A. So we have today, December 5th, a high severity alert came in for process on this host. Okay, tactic, technique, like you see, defense evasion masquerading, the triggering file. Just read these different fields. We have severity, detect time, process, the tactic, technique, the triggering file, the host name, which is the name of the device, the username, okay, which is the name of the user. It's currently unassigned, so nobody's addressed it. You can assign these to yourself by your name. And then if it was resolved, it'd have like a resolution, maybe explanation, and the status is still new. So you can click here. Typically, I'll just click on the actual event. And once you click here, it'll open up all of these different. I'll call it like I guess it's called the process tree at this point. It looks a little different. So it's been I think CrowdStrike recently made an update to its UI, John. I'm not mistaken. Right? Okay.
Did a whole lot, yeah.
So would this be the process? This is like the process tree then.
This is the process tree. Another good way to see it is if you click on the what do you call that? The menu, the dot there.
Oh, right here.
Next to desktop. Yeah, click on that. Details view.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a little better to,
process table view, process tree view. You could essentially see the same thing in different views, whichever.
Go ahead and click on the details view. That's going to make it a little bigger and better to see. That way you have all the information you see. And yeah, we can go through that. So you see the description of what the alert happened. Like, why did this fire in the first place? These tools don't try to hide it. They just tell you right there and there what they're trying to detect there. So you can see it lost from an unusual location. If it's unexpected, investigate the parent process and file.
Yeah. So, and I think what's really important is that you get down from the very beginning, I would say, framework and the way you're
mindset.
Yeah, but when you're going through these alerts, right, you're going to see so many alerts, a lot for the same stuff and a lot for different things. But ultimately, in security operations and incident response, you have to be as descriptive as possible, right? So you want to make sure that your analysis is providing as much information as possible. So everything like the timestamp, okay, the host, okay, the user, the file. So this is an executable, right? I've never seen this before.
Hey, Will.
Yep.
Can you go back to how you get to that particular? I know I'm in detection.
Sure.
And just want to go by.
Absolutely. So we'll just go to the beginning, right? So when we logged in, we're here. So there's two ways to get to the detections. You can just click on detections. We have 26 of them right here. So if I right click, now we're in the detections, detections queue. And you know that because we've been in endpoint security, and right here it says endpoint detection. So right now we're in endpoint security. We're in the activity dashboard. So endpoint security, we're in the activity dashboard. That's where we are here. If you want to look at the specific detections, you can click here, new detections, or you can click on this hamburger and then go to endpoint detections. So there's two ways to get to the same place. There's 9 ways to skin a cat. All right. I don't need cat, but I'm just saying. So here we are. Does that make sense, Tom?
Yeah, I got you.
All right, cool. And then to get from here to this alert, all we did was we clicked on the first one. I mean, you click on, there's a bunch of them, right? But we're just starting at the top. We're just looking at one alert today. All right, that's what we'll do. So
you click on the process host on the
You can
host?
click anywhere. You can click
Yeah.
anywhere. I'm
Anywhere?
just clicking on this line.
I
Okay.
think to get to the details view, you click on the menu option at the right side.
The ellipsis. So these three dots, this is an ellipsis. You can click here and you can click details view. But once you can click anywhere and get to the same place. But if you want to go directly
Okay.
to this, then you would just click on the ellipsis and click
Okay.
on details view. If you click on the ellipsis and click on process tree view, it'll still take you to the same alert. It just will be a different view. So you click on the ellipsis and you click on details view, and now we're at the same place. Capiche?
Got it.
And I'll just show you, if we go back and we go to process table view and we click there, we're at the same alert, but look up the top, guys. So now we're in the process table view. So details is the details view, like John just had us looking at right here on this tab. And if you look up, right, it's the same page. So details, process table, process tree, all these different columns will give you the same information, just serve it to you a little different. Or maybe a little bit different information too, but the point I'm trying to make is it really just depends on what you're how you're more comfortable looking at this. And again, CrowdStrike just updated its UI, its user interface. So things have been moved around a bit. So that's why I seem a little bit, like something I'm like, where's this? Where's that? So you just that's why I said, click on everything and get familiar with the new buttons and the new layout. Because even someone like me and John, who've been using this tool for years, when things get moved around and updated and changed, sometimes it could be confusing. So just get comfortable clicking. So you have the details, process table, which looks exactly like kind of like a table, right? You can see like these different lines of what we would call processes. You'll notice that you have the process tree, which kind of looks as more of like a tree graph, and you can kind of click here and expand, right? These different, kind of load these different processes. You can see like the different, grandparent, parent, child processes, process graph, right? So this looks a lot more confusing to look at it. And then you have the events timeline, okay? So we're just going back to the initial view that we were in, because I think John mentioned it's like you can kind of see things a little bit better. So we have this particular file that's triggering on this particular device or host by this particular user. Okay, does everyone get that so far? We have a file on this device or host, we're going to call it a host, that's triggering by this user. Does that make sense? How do I know this is a file? How do I know this is a file, guys? Well, it has that .exe. Anyone know what that .exe stands for?
Executable.
That's right. That's right. Executable. So,
Sorry.
and this date. So what I like to do, and everybody has their own way of doing this. Again, we don't want to overload. We're, 8:14. So we're not going to overload you guys and actually do a ticket tonight. But what we're going to go through, and what I would like to go through, is how we structure our disposition. Like if I'm investigating this, these are key artifacts or observables. They're like, think of this as important indicators. So we have one artifact is the file, second artifact is the host name, third artifact is the user, okay? Fourth is the timestamp, okay, that this triggered 1017, okay? We have a description.
What's the
okay?
difference between the host and the user?
So the host is the device. That's the desktop. So we're working on a desktop NU8C5C6. So that's just the device. Like you're on a desktop, I'm on a desktop. That's what that is, the host. The user is the user account. So that could be in this instance, right? In this instance, the user account is kind of convoluted because it says ThinkPad T480S. Right. So it's almost like it almost looks like another host. Right.
Yeah.
But again, I think that's just the naming schema because it says by. And if we figure out that that's not the case, then we'll figure that out. But again,
I would just add, that don't be, so when you're working with the tech, I guess, and in an organization, users, a lot of times the user is not going to be like Jonathan. A lot of times, unless it's emails, you're looking at F something something, or X this and this, and those users, they'll have a database where like this username is owned by this user in the company that you can talk to and things like that. So it's very, very common to even like service accounts to be talking about users that are programmatic users, is what you would call them. It's just they're system users, because a endpoint has a system user that is doing all the activity in the back end for it. So it's very common to see that, and something. Yeah, good question.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, for some reason I can't get this. Yeah, go ahead, Justine. I'm trying to get my document to open.
So the description that is put on there, who writes these descriptions? Like, where do they come from? I'm curious about that.
Good question, Jonathan.
Yeah,
I can tell you who did, just because I know. But Jonathan actually does this, so I'll let him speak to it.
So there's two ways to do it, right? In CrowdStrike in particular, every system's going to be different, but in CrowdStrike, you can have out of the box alerts that the CrowdStrike team and the CrowdStrike vendor created, and they have a lot of them, and those come along with descriptions. Or in CrowdStrike has this things called IOAs, which is basically how you can create detections in CrowdStrike and write your own. In this particular case, I gotta look at the alert to see it, but it will tell you if it's a custom IOA. In this case, it didn't look like a custom IOA to me, but I could be wrong. Yeah, IOA is indicator of attack. Essentially, it's just a way you can write a detection in CrowdStrike.
So, okay, why did it do this?
Did that answer the question?
So it's created by like, is it kind of like so it's coming from CrowdStrike. Is it kind of like something that they already have in stored, so that when the alert comes in, it has like, okay, from this database, this is this, based on whatever it is details that they're getting from the alert, kind of like that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Out of the box, it knows the naming convention. So, for example, you're going to see a lot of times that, like the name of that alert, which was like this file on this host by this user. That's just because it has that data, so it was able to know where to put it, essentially. So it knows that, and then it has a pre-filled description for that particular indicator of attack. I believe in that particular detection, it was saying that in a file, which we can talk about the file path and how that works in a machine, where in order to, let's say, open up a Chrome browser, there's certain files and executables that need to execute in order to open up Chrome, and that's called a file, like a process tree. It's called the process tree. And in that detection, if I remember right, that description said, so it launched from an unusual locations. So a lot of times, what these endpoints, specifically these EDR tools, they're looking for executables and files that will trigger, where it's using machine learning. They understand that, hey, this isn't how this normally gets executed. So this is strange. And then it goes and alerts a SOC analyst to go and review the process tree to see if this is a weird process that wouldn't have normally kicked this. Why did it do that? So yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I yes, kind of.
So
Yeah.
a lot of times, and I'll piggyback on that. That was like perfectly said, but just to help everybody understand and hear it again, a lot of these processes can be normal normal processes, Windows processes that are just triggering on the back end. Like I mentioned earlier, informational alerts are very noisy because they typically tend to trigger on normal business, normal computational functions and processes, right? When you open Chrome, there's processes that run in the back end for Chrome to open up a browser, right? That communicate with the operating system. And that's normal. That's just normal process behavior. And so a lot of times malware will be configured and built to masquerade itself, which is like to hide, put makeup on, masquerade or mask itself, and be live and stored in locations that would be typically where you would see legitimate software, right? Where you wouldn't typically look because you're like, that's normal, that's typical, right? So you want to pay attention to see what parent processes, because processes call other processes and spawn other processes, right? That's why in the process tree, right? In the process tree and process table, you'll see grandparent process, parent process, child process, executable command, right? For example, we're looking at a command line here for this particular, looking at here, this is the file. Ultimately, when you see the exe, that's the file, and that's the whole command. Here's the file path, okay, which is the path of the file. So it's device, hard disk volume, program files. Here's the hash value, this SHA-256, okay. More information here, description that we were just talking about, okay, hash values that you can use to go and search on and see, hey, is this particular hash suspicious? Does it have a reputation for, doing some type of malfeasant, behavior? There's different disk operations and host details that we can see. We have IP addresses that we can look up to see if those are malicious, if they're malicious or benign. And so kind of going on a tangent here, but the point I was trying to make is that, right, we want to investigate the process tree and the parent processes, because if it's a legitimate file, but it's being, let's say, stored in an unusual location, well, then that would raise a red flag, right? That would raise a red flag. So we just want to make sure that we're doing our investigation and really looking at the bigger picture. So a lot of times when an alert triggers for a particular time, right? December 5th, 2024, 10:17, 54 seconds, right? It's really important to take a look at the time of the alert, but also before and after the alert, and build a story. John, can you talk a little bit about story building with respect to responding to these alerts and how that contributes in your investigation?
Yeah, of course. So you have to be able to communicate what you're finding along the way. I have notes on literally from 3 years of cases being investigated, and just from me keeping notes. Okay, so case management, when somebody talks about case management, is being able to record what you're finding, record the artifacts, and being able to tie in what happened during your investigation. So you typically want to answer your who, what, when, where, why questions, right? And why Will was pointing to, hey, this is the executable, this is the host name, this is the user, this is the time, because that's what you're going to use to write your story. On December 5th, 2024 at 10:17 a.m., this executable was detected on this host by this user. The detection was for an unusual path, and then that's when you start making your, your how you got to the conclusion that you'll get to during your investigation. So right there, you have a perfect sentence. Anybody who comes in and sees, hey, what were you working on? You can right there record it. Now, I wanted to go back into CrowdStrike to talk through how you would do an initial like run through and know, hey, am I actually looking at some crazy stuff or what? Because when you, again, we said earlier hashes. What were they? Does anybody remember what a hash was?
Like a fingerprint.
A fingerprint.
ahead.
Exactly. So we have the fingerprint of this file, this yx6tfp.exe file. And we have intelligence, because as we talked about last time, there's multiple sites where you can literally search for IPs, hashes, domain names, websites, URLs, to see if anybody reported this URL as being known to belong to a criminal organization, or I've seen it in other hacks. So one of the things we're going to talk through is how do you, like, where do you go and things like that. VirusTotal is my favorite place by far. You throw it in a hash. Okay, what is it? You go, yeah, you can choose those. But simply just going to the first search bar at the top, you can literally put any of those URL, IPs, hashes. You throw it in there, boom. You go in here and you find your results. Looks like, oh, this belongs to the CVCH host.exe file. Very common file in a Windows machine. Yeah. And that's another thing. Thank you, Will. Yeah. If you ever have a question
through it.
yeah, if you have, like, okay, what is this file?
I don't
You
know
throw
what
it in
this
Google.
is. Who
Yeah.
knows what this is, right?
You throw it in Google, it literally will tell you exactly what it is. Like, I've never run across anything that I didn't need, like, executable, that I didn't just find, just throw it on Google. And if you need a deeper explanation, AI definitely also give you a good explanation of what it is, what it's used for. And a lot of times you can say, as in when I'm investigating this executable, how can this executable be found, to be malicious, or like, how could somebody use this to exploit? Exactly. How can this be used to for malicious reasons? I feel like it's because the browser is through the VPN.
That's
It's
probably why. Sorry, but the process of what we're doing is still the same, but this is exactly what I would do. Service host is a little bit more common, so you'll recognize more common Windows processes over time. I see you, Charisma. And so you'll start, but if you look right here, I would still do this in ChatGPT and literally explain it so a 5-year-old can understand, because it'll break it down in a way where your brain will remember what that does. So service host, also known as a service host, is a Windows system process that loads and manages DLLs. What's a DLL? I don't know. Let's look it up. What is a DLL? It's a dynamic link library. Okay, so you gotta you might find yourself going into multiple rabbit holes. As you guys can notice, the tabs are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, that's super common.
But there they go, proof in the pudding. But again, it'll give you an understanding, and you'll really start to understand what's happening. So this looks like a legitimate file. All right, my bad, John, to continue.
No, you're good. You're totally good.
You had a question?
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, under the hash section in CrowdStrike, the sandbox, is this like a built-in sandbox for CrowdStrike?
Good question. So
there is
does have a sandbox, but I've never used. It's been a while since I've used it. John?
Yeah, it does. It does have a sandbox. I don't know if this subscription has it, but a lot of times, so sometimes it will sandbox it for you if it hasn't found the hash before, because again, CrowdStrike is in a bunch of different companies are using it, so it has the hashes of millions and millions of files. So this particular hash is so common, it doesn't even need to throw it in a sandbox. But let's say it finds a new executable that hasn't been seen in the wild, it'll automatically send it to the sandbox for you. And you can send it to the sandbox if you ever needed a file. I believe we're not going to do it here, but I believe if you go to the menu, I saw an option to do a sandbox. Go to investigate, go to endpoint security on the left side. There's a quarantine files on demand scans. Those, yeah, quarantine files are for CrowdStrike can sometimes automatically, if it finds something malicious, quarantining, meaning extract it out of somebody's computer and put it somewhere where it can't, either communicate out, like send information out, or continue to spread in your organization. But if you do on-demand scans, you can. I think that's actually scanning at an endpoint. So
you just think of COVID when you think of quarantine. What did it mean when you got quarantined?
Yeah, I don't want. Let's not bring that up.
Isolating, you're saying?
Exactly.
Isolating incident?
Exactly. No, but I know what you mean. There's another.
Yeah, you might.
You
might not be in this subscription.
License.
Yeah, license.
So sandbox is like quarantine. Is it quarantine the actual what is it?
No, so
I'll show you.
Sandboxing. While you pull that up, sandboxing is basically, virtual machines, right? So it's basically being able to execute a file in a virtual machine that's not on your computer right now. That way you can observe and see what the malware would do, what the file would do.
So CrowdStrike has a sandbox. So think of it right now. If there was a malicious URL, you guys all know what phishing is. And let's just say I had a malicious phishing URL. Let's say this was the URL that's malicious, right? So I could, I could throw this into VirusTotal, and it'll tell me, oh my God, it's phishing. It's not, obviously there's no hits, but what I'm saying is, and we'll do this later on. Let's say I was like, okay, it's malicious, but I want to see what it does. Like, what if I was to actually go to this right now in my browser? What would it do? Would it redirect me to a malicious login page and try to steal my credentials in the form of a cred, harvester? Would it drop a file, like download a file on the back end that has macros and, a virus? What would happen? I don't know. So let's say you want to see what would happen, but you don't want to risk getting infected. Then what you'll do is, got some funny commentary I'm holding back tonight, y'all. Anyway, what you'll do is you'll use the sandbox, and CrowdStrike has a built-in sandbox, but there's other free open source sandboxes. Joe's sandbox is being one of them. And I would say it's pretty respected. Like, I think people actually use this, but a lot of companies will pay for paid tools or paid versions of the free tools. But you can see here, right? You can choose your analysis architecture. So if you're running on a Windows, if you wanted to run on a Windows, a Mac, an Android, a Linux-based operating system, you can. Most people just leave it as Windows. You can upload a sample of the file. So if you want to upload a file, you have a file, you want to upload it, a doc file, PDF, HTML, whatever, you can do that. If it's a URL, you can paste the URL. Again, I'm not logged in, and we will do this. I just don't want to deviate too far, but you can actually submit the URL, right, once you're logged in, and it'll actually, you choose the system. So we're going to do base 64, pretty standard. You can check live interaction and results. So it'll show you exactly what happens in screenshots. And then you would say, accept, and then analyze. And so then what it would do, it was run this in a virtual instance that you could then click and see as if you were to do it on your own device. And so a lot of times analysts will use sandboxes to detonate malware so you can learn and reverse engineer what the malware is doing, right? What is it trying to do? What processes is it spawning, right? Processes is it spawning? What is it dropping a file? What type of activity is happening? So you can put this URL and you can scan it, okay? And it'll start to scan and give you its, you know, it'll basically perform what's called, what is it called, John? Data, I'm losing, it's been a long
Data
day.
analytics. What do you mean?
Yeah, essentially data analytics, and just like it'll
Yeah.
you know, scrape the internet and pull from different intelligence feeds and give you its an analysis on if it has a malicious reputation. So obviously Joe's sandbox isn't malicious, it's a legitimate
Yeah.
URL.
And if you see the screenshot right there, that's exactly what you would see if you were to click on, if you went there. So yeah, that's what analysts will use that a lot of times, like for phishing links. How do you know it's a phishing link? You open it up and then it's like, hey, type in your email, username, and password to log into it. But if the URL is like, micro disk something similar to Microsoft.com or some gmail.com, but it's not. It's fake, but it looks real. And so that way you don't have to actually go to the site to be able to see how it looks like. This is yeah, you can do that same thing with files.
Yep. Sorry, I seen that you dropped that thing, Sean. So these different links that we're dropping, make sure that you bookmark them. You should have a bookmark on your computer for CyberXCS. So just create a bookmark, okay, and just create a bunch of just save these. For example, right? Like I have these like AI tools, and I have these saved, right? So you can create one just like this, CyberXCS, and then save these tools, or just call it like, intelligence, add a folder and call it, intelligence, or open source intelligence. You'll see this a lot. Open source intelligence is what OSINT stands for. And then just save these particular, URLs. VirusTotal was a free one. These are all tools that we use. URLscan.io, Go Sandbox. Those are 3 tools you will use every day as an analyst. And if you don't use these 2, then you're using a different sandbox that your company's paying for.
And the thing is, as we said, exposure. Like now, tying this back to interviews, saying that you spend your weekends going through VirusTotal and looking up different indicators, you go and look at different URLs and dropping in, files into sandboxes. That's exactly what an interviewer wants to hear, that you know how to work these tools, that you're understanding the concept of like during an investigation, I need to go and validate URLs. I need to go to VirusTotal to look up hashes. I need to be able to speak on, how would, if you get malware, where do you look? Well, you get the hash of the suspicious file and you drop it in here, or you get the file, you drop it in the sandbox and you see what happens. And that's how you would, know if it's malicious or not. That's the first step to whether or not you're able to escalate it.
Question. So essentially sandbox is basically a controlled environment where you can run malware or something suspicious so it doesn't infect other computers. It's contained, right? Now, will we learn how to use a sandbox, or is it pretty simple? Like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna definitely.
And also, like, I don't know if this has anything to do, but will we do snapshots too, or is that just with virtual machines? Because that's confusing to me.
You said snapshots?
Yeah.
Well,
Like on virtual machines to restore a computer back to its previous state, they do snapshots. And that confuses the hell out of me. I don't understand it. And I was just wondering if that has.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're not gonna touch on that, but we will, so from a security perspective, whenever we had to engage for snapshots, we're talking to the virtualization team. So we're engaging a team to take a snapshot of something. A lot of times, snapshots, because I've worked with system administrator tools and things like that, I've had to take snapshots. It's not too complicated. All you're doing is basically taking a copy of the computer and storing it so that typically in a different location, so that if something happens to one computer here, you're able to bring it up in another site, because usually if something goes bad with that computer, it's the whole site is just gone. So you don't keep it in the same place. You keep it in a different place. They're two separate things though, snapshots and sandboxing.
Two different things.
Different things, yeah. Because
Yes, okay.
as you mentioned, sandboxing is more about containerizing and having something that's isolated so that it doesn't spread. And there you use it to observe and investigate behavior of a phishing link or a malicious file.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I have a slightly different response to that, just because John's giving you a response from a perspective where he's a senior engineer at a Fortune 500 billion company that has a team for fucking everything. Like the company he works at is a huge organization that has a cyber threat intelligence team, like a team dedicated to sending out your open source articles. Like they have a team dedicated to send you intel that you can then pull the IOCs and the malicious URLs and the IP addresses, and then start to like build searches and content for. So there's teams for vulnerability assessment, there's teams for, pen testing, there's teams for, like he said, virtualization, right? Other companies and organizations won't have that. For example, my understanding and experience with virtualization snapshots, like you're saying, is I've worked at we used to work together, so I understand that perspective. But I've also worked in organizations where you may have access to a sandbox or a virtual instance where you're going to detonate malware. And after you're done detonating the malware, it's the analyst's responsibility to reinstate the snapshot back to its original or previous state. Because what you're doing essentially when you detonate the malware in the form of running a URL, going to the malicious website, or uploading the file, is you are essentially detonating the malware. And so now you are essentially intentionally infecting the computer. And so the purpose of excuse me, I'm losing my train of thought. The purpose of reinstating a snapshot back to a previous state is so that you are then leaving a clean image for the next analyst to go in there and do the same thing you just did, right? And so kind of controlling the environment a little bit, if that makes sense. So, but yes, we will be actually doing it. So the point of me, and we're dropping specific terms, IOC, IOA, anything that we drop in the chat is like, take it for its weight in gold. Like everybody here should know what an IOC is. We talked about this. A hash is an IOC, indicator of compromise. A URL, an email, a domain, right? Those are all different IOCs that we start to look for and begin to hunt for in an environment where John may be building detections, use cases, alerts that map to what? The MITRE framework that are identifying what? IOCs. So anything we drop in the chat, you guys should be really writing down, taking notes, and know. And so these 3 tools you all should have bookmarked, and you should all create accounts with or for. A lot of them have free versions, like we're using it right now. But Joe's, I believe they have a version, like right now you have to sign in to actually use their sandbox. And it's free. Like you can sign in, create an account here, which you all should register and create an account in Joe's. And then now you log in and can detonate malware. Now, you might not be able to run, let's say, 10, detonations in 24 hours. You might only be able to get 5 because it's free, but we'll still be able to use the tool. So make sure you create accounts on these different tools that we label and point out as tools you need to know and be familiar with. Anybody have any questions on that? So what we're doing right here, and again, I really appreciate the opportunity to get to ping pong back and forth with John, is we're creating a case. Now, typically, we probably wouldn't for this. Again, we haven't really finished investigating, but it really doesn't look like this is malicious activity based upon the file, based upon the hash, right? And so, but I'm just going through the process because everyone's pretty new here and it's important. So as of right now, you're going to apply this same framework to every single investigation that you perform. So if you notice here, just look at the key parameters. On date. So here's the parameter on, and then what are we embedding? A timestamp. So on December 5th, next week on December 9th, right? Tomorrow on December 6th, right? It should be on December 5th, ready? At this time, right? CyberExius or whatever company, like I'm just giving you an example, right? We're working on behalf of CyberExius. So CyberExius investigated the following alert for, what is this? Name, right? Title, alert name. So on date, at time, us, CyberExius, investigated the following alert. This is going to be boilerplate, right? CyberExius investigated file alert 4. That's boilerplate. You're always going to use that, right? For name of alert. Okay. Review of the CS CrowdStrike process tree revealed, or review of the QRadar of alert revealed, or whatever, review of the Microsoft Defender 365 alert revealed that the following description, boilerplate. Okay, which was, I believe, all of this, because now we're providing the context of the alert. Further review of the alert confirms the following activity is triggering on. What is it triggering on? This file.
Okay.
With an associated hash value of, and if you look here, guys, what's really cool, we talked about hash being a thumbprint. Doesn't that look like a thumbprint? And every hash is unique, just like your fingerprints. So I'm going to copy this. Whenever you see the little square right here, that's a little copy. With associated hash value of, right? You guys see what I'm doing here? Right?
Yeah.
So now look, watch this. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to ask you, I think you said boilerplate. Was that right?
Boilerplate meaning stuff that it's like I'm giving, when I say boilerplate, what am I trying to say, John? Meaning this is language that you're going to use over and over, and you're just going to be replacing the parameters, aka the hash, the timestamp, the alert name, the file or executable or description, right, in the file. So the boilerplate stuff is, CyberExius invested the following alert for. Further analysis, further review of the alert confirms the following activity is triggering on. Right now, what I'm about to say, an open source a search of the hash value in what's OSINT? Virus total, URL scan IO, Joe's. So what I'm saying is a search of the hash value, and that could be hash value, comma, source IP address in, it could be hash value and source IP address in open source intelligence didn't return any malicious or suspicious indication, right? So I'm building a story, but you're going to continue to use this boilerplate, right? I'm showing you guys how to write a disposition for a particular investigation. Is this making sense to everybody? How
Is
y'all
there a-
feel? I'm starting to see some
Is there a
smiles.
template?
Y'all thought this was self-paced modules? What y'all thought this was?
Is
So
there
I
a template that we use on all these particular case by case that we have to follow?
I kind of
so-
wrote my
so-
own, so I was gonna send it in the chat and have you check it.
Sure. That's how you learn. So everybody do that so I can then, shred it to pieces and then it'll just be better, right? But no, the point is that's great, Isabella. Send it over so that we can, get your minds flowing, right? So, and the more rocks that you turn over, and I'm gonna, I'm just doing this. John may tell us in any moment now, yo, you didn't check for this, you didn't check for that, right? John's an engineer who builds these detections, right? So he's looking for stuff from a different angle than I'm looking at things, right? And if I'm being brutally honest, like I respect his level of intellect. So you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna be like, he's gonna be like, yo, look at this. He's building the detections that these alerts are firing on. You guys don't know how invaluable that is, guys. Like, it's a $250,000 skill set wherever he goes. Anyway, so with that being said, send your dispositions in. But what you'll see, like I'm just spitballing right now because I've done this so many times that like I know the flow of the disposition on this, such and such date, right? My company name, I'm just right. Investigated the following alert for, boom, paste that. Further review, then I paste the description, further review of the alert, revealed, boom. And then more of my analysis. I'm just marking things off. What is the hash? What is the IP address, the URL? What did it, the detonation results that confirmed it was clean. You see what I'm saying? And I'm just going through the list. I'm just going through my analysis, checking all those boxes and tasks to make sure that we've covered all our bases. Anything to add, John? Just from any feedback?
Yeah, you're hitting the nail on the head. A really fast way to think about it is who, what, when, how. Always. When, that's the date. Who, that's the username or the host. What is the name of the detection, like what happened. And then the how is the next part of this, which is the investigation, which we touched on it. How is going into VirusTotal, open source intelligence tools, looking up the hash, or even deploying the potential malware in a sandbox is how you got to the conclusion that you're going to get to in the end, whether it's, hey, there's nothing to see here. This is just benign activity.
And
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessarily in this order that I wrote it, like who,
Yeah,
what.
no, it doesn't matter. As
When
long
is
as those
when
things
is
are there.
typically first, in my opinion, because you're always going to lead with the date, right? So, but these are still the parameters you need to cover in your disposition. Your parameters should, your disposition should cover who's impacted, aka the user, the host, or who is the user, what is the host or the system or the environment, when, the timestamp, where is like, okay, kind of contributes like in the network, or exactly kind of, take that with a grain of salt. Why, meaning what's this description and what is it triggering on? In this case, it's triggering on the SV host launching from an unusual location, right? And how, okay, is how did this happen? So retracing the steps, and then also being able to provide that explanation of things that you did to determine, right, your your analysis, your disposition, which is going to end in a few different ways: false positive, true positive, benign positive. There's what am I missing, John? Like a bunch of different
Yeah. For now, I think true positive and false positive, keeping it there.
It's simple.
It's a bit more complex.
We're going a mile, 100 miles an hour. But again, we're walking the alert down. That's what we're doing. We're running down on this alert. And so that's why we're going through these different steps. We're saying a search of the hash value, which is what we did in VirusTotal. We said, hey, look, a search of the hash value, all right, didn't return anything in open source. It's saying 0 hits. Now, sometimes, guys, you may get an instance where you're searching for something in VirusTotal, and it may say 1 or 2 hits of like malicious. This will be red, and it'll say like malicious, suspicious, but just because you see something with a malicious or suspicious indication in virus total doesn't necessarily mean that it's malicious or suspicious, right? You still have to do more analysis to support that claim, okay? Because it could be that once it maybe was, but then after, you know, the particular website was taken down, or it was cleaned. So again, we're just kind of going through the information here in the alert details, okay? And that's all I'm saying here is further review of the alert details confirms the following activities triggering on this file with an associated hash value of this. A search of the hash value, I'm going to remove IP address. Actually, we'll do the IP address too, because we did have some IP addresses. So if you look, when you keep scrolling down, we have host. It's broken down, guys. So just pay attention to the fields. Full details, hash value, host, okay? Host, we got to add that in there too. And then look at the host. We have the operating system, the host ID. We have the IP address. We have the local IP address. This is important because, right, you have public IP addresses, hence this one right here. And you have private IP addresses or local IP addresses. So one thing to remember, guys, very important, okay? This will never change. A public and private IP. So public IP is exactly what it sounds like. It's internet facing. A private IP is internal, okay? And so an example of a private IP is a 192.168x.x. Whenever you see a 192.168, those numbers specifically, that is a private IP. Okay. And another one, there's another private IP address that starts with a 10 dot. So whenever you see a 192.168.18.107, that's a private IP. Whenever you see a 10.1.25.8, that's a private IP. That means an internal IP, local or internal. Everyone understand that? So when I'm looking at this, if I want to know what this is within the network, then okay, I'd probably consider looking at the local or private IP. But I want to know what this IP is. I want to know what this IP is of the public facing IP. So what I can do is I can also drop that in virus total. Okay. How the heck do I get this from going away?
Yeah, and when you get a chance, we'll throw that hash that I put on the chat in virus total.
Okay.
I want to show how a malicious hash looks like.
Okay, where did it? Oh, you put, okay. Yep. Okay, cool. Cool. Manny, what's shaking, Manny? How you feeling?
I'm good. How are you? What's up?
Good. All right. So everybody's with it. Let's go. Any no malicious results here? All right, cool. So let's put something. Let's do this hash value. John said he found. Whoa.
This
See
is what
I
a
mean?
malicious hash will look like.
This is what a malicious hash will look like. What else could they look for in virus total that stands out? Because the red is an eye catcher, right? This shit looks like a Christmas tree.
It
What
looks
else?
yeah, you'll see it if sometimes it'll just have one or two that is malicious. You have to, you know, then want to dive deeper. And that's where you look at the detection. So down there are open source Intel organizations and like vendors. So you see CrowdStrike Falcon is down there. You see Deep Instinct. You see Cynet. These are different organizations that are reporting, hey, this is malicious. So what Virus Total is doing is every single time an organization says it's malicious, it's capturing that. So this is saying 56 out of 72 organizations reported that this is malicious. Another thing you can go into is the community. If you click on that, people have commented and wrote details about what this is. This is malicious. This is some details about it. APT, nuke speed down there. potential like what this malware could do if it's in your system. It looks like somebody's saying that it might reach out to that IP 185.199. So this is another thing to explore. And the last part is at the top. It usually will have a sense of what it is. So like this, I think if you go back to the detection part, it said it was like a Trojan.
Yeah, the threat label. If you look here,
Threat label.
Threat label is saying it's a Trojan, which you guys should all look up as a type of malware, and it's saying like the specific, I guess, variant.
Yeah, there's multiple variants, I think.
And multiple vendors are saying this is a Trojan. So,
Yeah, so
Trojan, like you can see this is it's malicious. So it's all saying the same thing. Another open source tool, guys, to save. Really important one. I like using it a lot. Is it IPDB? Is that what it is? Yeah. So that hash, by looking at the community section and seeing what other people are saying, right? File scan IO, 100% verdict, malicious, tags, APT, advanced persistent threat, nuke speed, crypto, grayware, hack tool, blah, blah, blah. This is a host that he's associating it with. Abuse IP database is exactly what it sounds like. It's a IP database of IPs that have been known to be used to abuse for particular things. So I'm dropping this 185 IP that's associated with this hash value that's making all this noise. And I'm seeing that, and again, take it with a grain of salt, guys. This IP was reported 108 times. Confidence abuse is 10%. So like John said, this vendor, 56 out of 72 are flagging as malicious, as a Trojan. So what this just did for us is it increased our confidence that this is probably malicious. And that's exactly what this is saying here is like, hey, this IP was seen like 108 times and the confidence of abuse is around 10%, which is kind of low. All right. It's saying that this is ISP is GitHub. So this is most likely a GitHub, repository or an IP that, what would you say, John, that?
Yeah, it belongs
to a repo.
It could be a repo. It could be a hosted site because GitHub has, you can host sites on GitHub. So it could be a site that somebody set up for communication out. You know, anybody can make up a Git URL. A cool thing too is if you go back to the VirusTotal community, that same person I mentioned the IP has a report section where it looks like they might have dropped it in a sandbox, and the report of the sandbox is there.
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do what you do. Hold on, I don't trust it.
Yeah, make sure. Yeah, scan IO. Yeah, I do that with everything. Yeah, you're in this field. You gotta be careful.
Yeah.
So, this is how a hash. When you drop in a file in a sandbox, sometimes they'll have pictures, but a lot of times they'll have just what they call malware strings, and it'll tell you what is the malware doing and stuff like that. So, you know.
We're just building on our analysis, team. We're just building on our analysis.
I have a question.
And that's what it's about.
Yes, sir.
Because SIEMs ingest traffic into logs and alerts, how often do we perform as like entry-level SOC? How often do you do I guess use tools like Wireshark or analyze PCAP files, T-Shark, forensics, or are those just for other like duties, or are those like outdated tools? Or are we just working on SIEMs on a day-to-day basis, or is it just different?
You can answer that, John. To be honest, in my personal opinion, I haven't used Wireshark in years. Just because there's so many like new paid tools that can do the same thing, but I really don't perform network packet capture analysis. John, am I bugging? Like I haven't used Wireshark in years. think the tools we have access to now can do so much more. But you correct me.
Yeah. You know, you're right. You're right on that. It's rare. We do use Wireshark, and honestly, we started using it recently because we just got a new NDR, and that NDR tool lets you capture those packages, and then you drop it in. You drop it in. Yeah, you'd be a little ninja, a cyber ninja, and drop it into Wireshark. But it's very rare. I think the thing about learning about Wireshark, it's like it's not a waste of time because you still need to understand how network traffic flows, what a packet looks like, what's in a packet. You know, you have a source IP, you have a destination IP, you have a MAC address. All that stuff is important, and I think it's going to be more visible, especially with the detections that are in QRadar, which are a little bit more network based. Because again, we're an endpoint, we're an EDR, right? An endpoint detection and response. So we're dealing more right here where we're exploring. We're dealing more with files and hashes and stuff like that because we're on the endpoint level. So in the SIM, you'll have logs coming in from a firewall, for example, and firewall deals at a lower level than endpoint and applications, which exist above the network. The network is under here, and that's just moving data and packets along. And yeah, we'll see more those alerts specifically on probably Tuesday. But yeah, does that answer your question, Sean?
Yeah, just like when I did my SOC level 1 path, it was a lot of information to ingest with different tools. So I was just wondering if we use
Yeah,
them or is it just mostly through Sims?
tools. Yeah, that's a great question. That's my frustration with with the training paths and all the different, you know, things that people say to kind of learn and do, is because it's not what SOC analysts use on the day to day. Unfortunately, it helps you get the basics, but it's not really what you're going to be doing on the day to day.
The reason being is because they're outdated. And a lot of these different SOC paths, programs, boot camps, bro, they're not buying these tools. Like QRadar is tens of $1,000s for the license. So like that's why when I've been talking this program up to you guys, like we bought the licenses so y'all can use this stuff. That's the difference. When I was in college, we had at the CCT, Wireshark, right? But Plattsburgh ain't buying licenses to QRadar, Splunk, and CrowdStrike, right? Like, so the reason why you're asking me about those tools is because that's what's been marketed to you guys. And in the industry, well, companies have, you know, billions where they can spend 500,000 on an annual license for Chronicle or for Splunk or for CrowdStrike or for whatever. Like that's why companies, when you actually get in the industry and you work in an environment, like if your manager hears you saying, I hate this tool sucks, what do we use it for? We're like, hey, like, you know, we pay a lot of money for that tool. You know what I mean? So they want you to use all the tools. So, but the reality is like, we don't use those tools because they're outdated. But they're good learning blocks for skill building. But I haven't used Wireshark in years. I haven't touched Wireshark since I was in college.
I'll be honest, like the only time at my job I hear Wireshark is like one time I'm on site and I'm trying to figure out why the connection to this port is not working and something like that. So we're like trying to read the packet or something like that. And like it's not saying that we'll not use it. It's just like kind of minimal as to like what the main goal is now, I feel like. Like at my job, CrowdStrike is the main EDR. So like getting hands on and then like working on your trivial knowledge is your trivial knowledge, meaning like your past knowledge is your past knowledge. Don't ever take it for granted. But yeah, continue to work on the new things and just getting your hands on and updated and new technology.
Absolutely. Now, so we're bringing it home here, team. 1 second, do this real quick. I'm trying to.
When I went to the abuse IPTM DB, I copied I guess Jonathan's Jonathan, what do you put in chat? It says page not found. Am I
A
clicking the right
hash?
thing to the
Or
hash? Yeah.
so abuse IPDB is specifically for IPs. So it's for network IPs. That hash is specifically, that's for file hashes. So you want to check on virus total. What other? I think was it gray noise as well?
Or what?
Dom, can you
Does
post that
hashes.
other link for the abuse one, if you can?
Yeah.
So check it out, guys. When you look, this is specifically IP database. So you're looking for an IP abuse IP database. So when you see
You're not
it,
sharing. You're not sharing.
You're not sharing your screen. Yeah.
Zoom is bugging. Yo, most technical people, like engineers and stuff, they don't know how to use Zoom. I promise you. They don't know how to share this fact. What I was saying is, if you look here, it says check an IP address, domain name, or subnet. So like if you have a URL, an IP, or subnet, because most IPs are going to map to like a URL domain. In VirusTotal, you can do, you can do all the above. So like, for example, you click here home, it says URL, IP, domain, or hash, right? So that's why you weren't getting anything, because you're looking at a hash in the, arguably in the wrong tool. So you probably just throw it in here and you'll get this.
Yeah. Okay. So it was a hash that couldn't be used in the abuse, I guess,
Correct.
platform. I got it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have the virus total link? It should be in the chat there.
Yeah. Do I have it? Yeah, I have it. I put it in. I bookmarked it too. Oh, I see it. Thank
you. Will, you want to close us in here?
Yeah. We're coming up on time here, folks. Part of it was my 30-minute spiel on how serious the, course and responsibility for you guys. But just going to reiterate this. I'll create the case and then we'll close this one out, right? So, we put the case title. So on date at such and such time, CyberXCS investigated the following alert for alert name. Okay. Then we put the description. Review of the CS process tree revealed that SVC host launched from an unusual location. This is just the description, right? From here to there. Further review of the alert details confirm the following activity is triggering on host for user and file with an associated hash value of, okay, which is this long string of that, an external IP address 124. A search of the file hash value and external IP address in OSINT didn't return any malicious associated activities. Based on the analysis performed, no sign of compromise was observed. No further action is needed. Okay. So what we just created is a disposition for this particular alert. You guys still got my screen?
Yeah, we see it. We're good.
So this is a new case management tool. There's many out there, Resilient, there's ServiceNow, the Hive, there's tons of them. This is an actual proprietary custom software that we built. This is not something that you'll find like on the market. This is a custom proprietary tool. So we're going to be adding to this. If you see areas for improvement, so evidences, that's a typo, should be evidence. So I'll get Solomon to fix that in our engineering team. So you can upload essentially screenshots if you wanted to. If you like took screenshots and wanted to like screenshot this, again, this is not applicable for the investigation, but John was just giving us an example. But screenshots would be something you can add there and that are encouraged. The category would be like, okay, like where does this fall in terms of what? What is this, guys? What is this? Anybody?
Tactic.
That's right. Reconnaissance tactic. Where does this? Where is this found? In what framework?
The
MITRE?
MITRE.
Yeah, MITRE
Right.
and it's PPT.
Right? That's
Tactic.
right. The MITRE ATT&CK Framework. And what we were looking at is the knowledge matrix, the attack matrix. When we see the TTPs, that's the attack matrix. We have to add to some categories and subcategories. So just bear with us. I'm just gonna select just anything right here just for the sake of time. So this is not correct, okay? But we got to add to it. But again, as long as we got the context down of this, which I shared with you, that's all that matters. You guys are creating a case right now. Name of alert, disposition from our investigation. And all right, severity, we're going to put, it was high. Was it high?
Yeah, it was.
And the group, it's our SOC team, blase, remediations, no action needed. All right, but we're creating a case. Typically, we wouldn't create a case. This would be for an example of something that we did see as malicious. It did have a malicious hash value. It does have a malicious IP. We did see some successful traffic, okay? So we're creating a case for something that doesn't need a case just for the sake of going through the process. Capiche? Case created successfully, okay?
Will we be doing that for one that actually is malicious?
Absolutely. Yes, but we're just kind of, beginning it. So wanted to get you guys, it was a lot covered tonight. I hijacked the call at the beginning, but y'all better get y'all resumes and LinkedIn's and start doing what was happening. When I post, y'all better engage and y'all better start posting. Any last remarks, John? We're gonna essentially do the same thing, guys, next week. We'll kind of start with QRadar next time, so we'll spend more time. What we'll do is, if you guys want to hang out and play around, you can do that. Probably for like another 45 minutes or so until everybody's access based on your user profiles has been configured so that it'll cut off at a certain time, but I think you guys have until like 10 o'clock. So even if this call ends and you guys want to continue to go look in the tools and go into QRadar, be my guest. I just set it up that way so that you guys had a little bit more time, because Dom looked at me funny last time he asked me how often he'll be able to look access the machines. But you have any closing remarks, John?
No, I mean, we covered a lot. I want to hear from everyone. The rest of the call. How do you guys feel with all this information?
I feel confident. I mean, I feel good. I feel a lot of it's resonating from studying. A lot of it is clicking with what I've studied for, even though I didn't pass the certification yet. A lot of it's connecting. So it feels really good. I haven't felt this way in a class. And I'm a teacher.
Well, you know why? Because this ain't a class.
Yeah. Yeah. True.
But I definitely appreciate those comments. As I'm going through this, like I'm getting so excited, like when I was writing that disposition, because I work at 10 o'clock tonight, by the way. I've been up for 24 hours. So from like Wednesday to Friday, I stay up for 72 hours and work. Anybody who knows me knows that that's a fact. I've been doing it for years. I do this exact thing at my job. So in 40 minutes when I log in, I'll be doing exactly what I just showed you guys how to do. Exactly. If you want to become a security analyst, you're in the right place. Man, we about to go crazy with y'all, man. We finna go crazy with y'all.
I have a question.
You got your third Red Bull? About to crash out?
Sorry?
For the resumes and the cover letters, the templates, do you want us to add this or officially do it at the end of the month?
So what I want you guys to do is I want you guys to take everything that we've given you and give your resume, LinkedIn cover letters a facelift. I will add this experience and articulate it in the way it needs to be done. Just get everything configured and updated, and then we'll provide the actual bullet points and the experience, how it's supposed to be marketed on your resume and on your LinkedIn. I just need you to take everything that you got existing already, that's pre-existing, and give it a facelift, so then we can then go ahead and you know, add. And once you guys create it and do that, you'll submit it, and then I'll have that reviewed.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
we'll
Thank
make
you.
sure that by you know, end of week 2, everybody's LinkedIn's up to speed, looks good, everybody's resume, cover letter, and now you guys are actually, you know, reaching out to people, not connecting with people. I'll give you guys the green light once I overlook your resumes and say, okay, it's good to go, to then actually start connecting with people so you can start sending out your resumes, right? And actually like attaching your resume with the updated experience from the things that we've been doing. Okay. And here's the thing, guys. Don't think that in 4 weeks you're going to be going and getting a 6-figure job, right? You know, in 4, because that's not realistic. Now, again, people have done it, right? It also depends on their transferable skills, right? And where they were doing before. Like, for example, Manny's in tech, Charisma's in tech. They didn't start there. When I first met them, they weren't. But for example, Manny's in a tech role, so him maybe pivoting into the security role might be a little bit easier than someone who's going in who's a barber, right? So, but again, what you're learning right now, what we just did is security analyst, senior analyst, tier 2 level work. Like what you just did, guys, is security analyst work, hands down, apples to apples. John, correct me if I'm wrong, right? And he's doing this from an
100%.
engineering side, 100%. And there's nothing like it out there. So when I was writing this position, I was just so excited because I'm like, holy shit, they're doing what I do at my job. So keep it up, guys. Just stay with it. You know, it's going to be a dogfight because everybody's tired. It's Thursday. You don't know how tired I am, and I got to stay up all night. But I'm so excited to be here because I know how much of an impact this is going to have on everybody if you guys continue to stick with it and how big this can get. So I'm just really excited for everybody, man. Just keep showing up, do the work, and you'll get the results.
So,
right, guys.
I have a question for a cover letter. Typically, it's like for a specific job
Yes.
role. How
Yes.
how would you want us to go about it in a general
Because
way?
you're constantly going to update it, right? So that's not something you're going to then generally blast to a role. Because if you're applying for a cyber threat intelligence role and you're sending a cover letter for a security analyst role, then you look like an idiot because then the company knows, oh, this was a boilerplate, So you have to constantly, you should have a folder and you should have different versions of your resume. I'm giving you the template and I'm going to give you the content. And then once you know how to do that, then you're going to create resume versions based upon job descriptions so that when you're applying for CTI, cyber threat intelligence analyst roles, you have it geared toward that language a little bit more. When you have a security analyst role, SOC analyst role, it's geared to that. And when you're doing something that may be more related to GRC, it's geared towards that, right? So you're going to tweak your resume according to the audience, which is the job description. So you should have multiple versions, is what I'm saying. And your cover letter is something you're constantly going to update. Every week that we continue to do this, we continue to progress, you should be continuing to update your resume. Because most people don't update their resumes for months, like months and months. And, I can say this, like I can say to that. I'm sure John can speak to that. Like, and it does yourself a disservice. Like tonight, y'all should be working on y'all resume bullet points. And if y'all did the course, you would know exactly how to do that. That's why you're going to send me your resume. I'm going to review it. It's going to be like that. So keep doing it. Cover
But
letter.
I think Isabella was asking more for when they submit it. I mean, you could probably use one job that find a posting that you like and base your cover letter on that and submit it on for Tuesday. And it sounds like a lot. Like, oh my God, how am I going to make so many resumes? Right? I hate resumes and building and all that. But AI is the key. And the course touches on how do you incorporate AI into hunting and having it revise your resume for different job postings. So,
just follow that. And if you have questions, use the platform in school. Create a post. We'll be there. Have you can send me a direct message or not, but yeah, engagement, man. Get in the chat and engage, man. I got a special prize for who's leading the leaderboard at the end of this program. I won't say what it is, but why do I gotta bribe y'all? It's crazy. Anyway,
we didn't ask for a bribe, but you voluntold yourself.
I gotta motivate you guys somehow to start typing on the keyboard. All right, guys, we gotta run 9:25. Have a great rest of the week. Happy Friday to everybody. And have a great weekend. Stay safe. We'll see you guys on Tuesday night.
All right, later. Thanks.
Get on
See you
LinkedIn,
guys.
yeah.
Bye, good night.
Good night, everybody.